This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.
So let us call the meeting to order. Meeting of the Southampton Select Board for August 6th at 6 p.m. Let's stand with the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. I don't see anybody here tonight for Citizen Speak, so we'll continue on. Scott, would you like to handle the announcement or two there?
Sure. Hey, Stephen. First, I just want to recognize that our town accountant, Bradley Oxon, has completed his designation as a Massachusetts Certified Public Purchasing Official. It's not a small task. It takes a significant amount of time and investment to actually go through the multiple classes to get certified, to study, and actually pass the test. So that's really good news for Bradley.
That's great. That's really good. Yeah. Okay.
And then Celebrate Southampton is coming up Friday and Saturday. Hopefully the weather will cooperate.
It's rain or shine, according to Tammy. So,
but even so, you can just grab an umbrella and enjoy it.
I think they're trying to get a few extra tents as well, so that if people are standing out waiting for food, they don't get totally wet. But we've had good luck for a few years, so maybe we'll still have a few good hours. But yeah. So Friday night especially, though, I just look at the agenda real quick. The concert, I believe it's at 6 o'clock. There's a grab-and-go meal from the Congregational Church, so if you're interested, give the church a call at 527-1173 to order your grab-and-go meal. And then the next day will be the main activities, starting at 10 o'clock at the church, with Doric Dodds talking about the church steeple, and then all sorts of activities in the afternoon going from around 11:30 until around 4 o'clock. So please try to come. It's a great event. Lots of fun. Lots of things to look at and things to buy, hopefully. There's a big craft presentation this year. There's got to be several booths of craft vendors there, and a couple of food trucks with some great food, so please try to come on down for an hour or so at least and join the fun. Plus there's a dunk tank, which I know Dan's going to be in, right? Hopefully. He thinks he is anyway. Okay.
I'm a good sick popsicle.
I say hopefully, because no one's talked to me about it, so maybe I just show up. I don't know.
Yeah, well, whoever shows up, right, exactly. So, very good. So, anyway, hope to see a lot of people there. It's usually a great fun time. So, please come in spite of the weather and don't let that discourage you. All right, let's go on to appointments and resignations. Let me just take the first one. I was supposed to be for Stephen Cowley as a new appointment for the fence viewer. This is a one-year term. This is one that's kind of an odd position. Actually goes back in history. I mean, literally decades and decades, if not more than 100 years of history of why people had fence viewers in small rural towns, but it was more when we had a lot of stone walls and people had to worry about animals staying confined and all those good things. So over time, Judy has reminded me that we've actually appointed somebody on this on a yearly basis, but when I saw the handbook recently, which actually was for the first time, the handbook itself was printed like 22 years ago. So the new person who I've talked to would really like to have a clearer idea of what his responsibilities are. And so I'm going to suggest that we pass over that until we can do a little bit more research and just find out if this MGL is still relevant to today, or whether it's maybe been taken over by something else. So we'll put it on hold for now, if that's okay with everybody, and then we'll bring it back up whenever we get some clarity on it, because it's a very old type position. It's not the same as the animal control officer, but it does raise a few questions as to what the person's duties are, and so I'd like to let that go for a little bit, and we'll come back to it. We'll keep it on the pending list once we figure it out, okay? I think we've just approved it sort of automatically without even really understanding what it is. So I took the advantage of asking for the manual, and it's like, oh, there's nothing terribly relevant and recent in that. So Let's move on to some other appointments then.
I'll make a motion to take as a package the reappointment of the following people to election worker, all of which will have a term to expire August 15th, 2025. Jeanette Brown, Virginia Huntley, Marion Hamill, Jane Howard, Mary Robinson, Joanne Pierre, Carol Lacasse, Patricia Izet.
Okay.
Izet.
Can I have a second, please?
Second. Oh,
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I make a motion to take as a package the following individuals for election warden, reappointment, term to expire August 15, 2025. Suzanne Seabolt, Eileen Hamill.
Second?
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
And then lastly, for the position of election clerk, reappointment, term to expire August 15, 2025, Elizabeth Grasty.
Okay, could I have a second?
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, all right, very good. That takes care of the slate, so we're in business for the coming elections, hopefully. Good. All right, Scott, would you like to pick up on the town administrator's report, please?
Let me just, next screen. The first one that we already mentioned, Bradley's accomplishment is the MCPPO. Next is the Wi-Fi has been physically installed in Town Hall. I don't know if you can see the points in here. I'm not sure if it was in this room, but you'll notice in the hallway there's a couple of different like white boxes, so those are going to be the access points. So the last part is we just need to have Novus come in and actually activate it to the server, and then we can publicize it, and there'll be a public access point and then one secure one for employees. So
Great.
Almost done with that one. And then we're going to talk about the fire department and getting them on board as well.
Okay.
One of the other things is we received some quotes for the repair of the concrete pad out in front of the steps. This was back about 2023, it was actually approved.
Wow.
Randall helped out to get a few quotes. He wasn't able to get any. The first thing was, I thought about maybe replacing it all with blacktop just because of the salt in the vehicles that constantly drive over it. It would have been easier. Most blacktop companies don't really do such a small job, unfortunately. Randall was able to help me out, and he reached out to some concrete companies as well, and I think he reached out for 4 quotes, and one came back. It was actually for pavers and not concrete. So the first option would be just to replace the 3 large squares, which would be about $5,000, which I'm not quite sure if that would really help the situation, just because the way that Randall and the highway department salts everything, there's cars that are constantly driving over it. Especially on Friday, people like to pull up directly to the drop box and use that. So the other option would be to replace them with a type of paver that is vehicle friendly and can withstand some moderate salting. Probably not like we would see on the highways, but should last a little bit longer than the concrete. That was one option that we were able to do. So.
And that amount was?
That was a little under $10,000.
But we've actually appropriated more at town meeting.
$16,750.
All right. Well, why don't we go through the report and then we'll come back to that, because it feels like we ought to take a vote on that to get it moving one way or another.
Yep.
It's been sitting around for a while.
So I met with the Pioneer Valley Planning Commission briefly last week, and we'll probably talk about more on the land use planning section. We also had a kickoff meeting with Ty and Bond and the sewer study, and that went pretty well. We had most of the stakeholders there, water department, highway, select board, myself, and Ty and Bond. The
Easthampton received their award letter for the State 911 with our shared dispatch center, so they received the funding for that for this year.
Great.
For the land acquisition, I do have a meeting scheduled with Katie, our town council for real estate, just to finish going over what's necessary to get everything completed. It should be a relatively straightforward process on the transaction part. The borrowing, we're going to have to talk about eventually. But from that part, the wetlands delineation is all set. The title search should almost be done. And then from that, it's just a matter of having the attorneys do the paperwork. And then Jody Burdell, Assistant Secretary for Community Programs for the Executive Office of Elder Affairs, paid a visit today just to introduce herself and kind of see what's going on at the Southampton Council on Aging. So we had a pretty good conversation.
Yeah, she came all the way up from Boston, so it was very nice to have somebody from the state recognize that Southampton exists, and she found her way to Southampton and the COA and had about an hour-long meeting, which was very nice, just to get a lay of the land and what's happening at the senior center. So that was very nice to have that contact. That's the first, I think, that we've had in recent times that I'm aware of anyway. Good. So any questions or thoughts? I'd like us maybe to go back on that quote on the getting the concrete pad or whatever the pad out in front dealt with. What does anybody think versus the concrete versus the pavers?
I mean, I don't have a problem taking a vote, but if we already appropriated up to $16,000, I mean, isn't the vote already there?
Okay. No, I just didn't know if people thought that it was better to stay within the cheaper side, but I'd like to take, I think Scott's checked it out, and this seems like an option.
The design, I'm not known for my style of fashion, so I don't know if those are ugly or, if those look nice or...
The only thing is, I mean, if not to spend more money, but you said this proposal here would be around 10? Give or take?
A little under.
Okay, so that in theory, and we appropriate 16.
Yeah.
So that leaves 6. And, I mean, I get that they're driver friendly, but I would probably look at putting 2 poles in, like just let's prevent cars from even driving up there to start with. Right?
Well, one thing we might think about in the future, I don't know whether it's possible, but, people come up and, drop off their payments and so forth or whatever, and they drive right up to the box.
So this would avoid that.
Right, but we might think about then also moving that box somewhere else so that it's not, so, they could access it easier.
Is this the time to do it?
Yeah.
As part of this project?
So it might be easier to access it if it were not quite right next to the stairs, although it's convenient for some, but,
You'd probably do something like the post offices drive-up mailboxes where you can just insert that in.
You could do something like that, I don't know. But yeah, just a thought. But as we're doing this, we might take a look at whether those boxes make the most sense right there. I mean, obviously, that's the mail truck uses them as well, so I don't know.
I have 2 questions. One, it seems like there's a large price difference between what we'd estimated before and now. It's the same scope of work?
Yeah.
It's the same scope of work as...
Better here, so we can hear you.
Okay. That's my first question, right? For what we approved at town meeting, it's the same scope of work?
I don't think there was a scope of work. It was just replacing.
Yeah, it was mostly for the replacing of the concrete pad and then looking at potentially if there's any cracks in the foundation as well, which I'm working with Dave, I can really find that many. So the real cost would be the...
So we don't have to address the foundation?
I don't see so. I don't think so.
All right. And my second question is, the employee in town I look to in this decision-making process would be Randall. Did he weigh in on this at all, and was he in approval?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Randall was actually able to get the quotes.
He got the quotes.
He's probably the most...
Sorry, I missed that. So I guess he did weigh in.
Yeah. Okay, so I guess what I'm hearing is we're in general agreement to go with these pavers that seem to be vehicle-friendly and will take a reasonable amount of salting, which we would do by hand anyway, usually, I think, although there may be some that spills over from the truck when it comes through, but I know we probably sand the stairs or salt the stairs as well, and so some of that spills down there, but it would not be a large quantity, obviously. All right, well, I think in general, let's get it done. This is one that was approved, I think, at the end of 23 special town meeting, so let's get that underway. Okay, how about anything else on that? If not, committee reports. Anything, Cindy, on your end? I'll start down that way.
Okay, thank you. Board of Assessors met today. It was routine business, nothing particularly, thank you, particularly important to report, other than we are still hopeful about one individual who's expressing interest in filling the empty seat and made known that she might be available in September, so we're moving in that direction. I also attended a Board of Health hearing. This was called, and to stay within the time required guidelines, this was called by the property owner who was served a cease and desist order, and this relates to, this person resides on Pomeroy Meadow Road and had installed a very small prefabricated home, I think like an A-frame, in order to be an Airbnb, and came forward with some questions and interest in essentially wanting to follow the rules, but needed clarification, was directed to fill applications that had not yet been created for various things. I bring this up to the Select Board, and we don't have to decide now, but this is something we should be thinking about. Going forward, in this day and age, I think this concept of an Airbnb, could be very small little structure that's come in and put on a slab or just about put on the ground. I know I've seen them in other communities, might have a composting toilet, might not have running water, might have some other kind of drinking water opportunities such as plastic drinking bottles, or other ways to non-potable water to maybe wash dishes or wash hands or something. I do believe our town needs to think a little more about how we're going to go forward on this, whether we want to develop some kind of process, make certain all boards and committees that might have something to say about it, being planning board, assessors, probably our public safety professionals, certainly our Board of Health, building inspector, et cetera. We too need to know sometimes when there's these extra types of structures, and frankly, if there's going to be a tax on them, it could be a room tax. These things are not clear at all, and so I wonder how we can proceed with that. It's not a bad thing. It's a good thing. I use Airbnb all the time for vacationing, not necessarily a small place in the woods, but it's still very attractive. So I think we really need to recognize this is going to happen. We want to make sure people know what to do and that they're complying with whatever we think are important guidelines and perhaps bylaws.
Yeah. And I'm assuming we don't have that on the books now with the revised planning board, zoning bylaws or anything for... We've got accessory dwelling units, but I don't think we have
Do you want to
Airbnbs
comment,
at all.
Mr. Planning Board people?
I'll say that at one point we were going to include it in our bylaw updates. We looked at that time and there was no current Airbnbs in town, so we looked at higher priority items. I guess it's come back around again, and maybe now is the time that we get it on the list of bylaws that we need to add for short-term rentals.
Good.
Yeah, maybe if, at least to start, perhaps, I would think it would start with planning board, but at some point involve other, have a first meeting so you all can discuss what the options are and what other towns may have done, and then
That's a good idea. There are
include others.
There are bylaws from other communities. If you,
Oh, I'm sure, yeah.
I think Chester's one of them.
But at the appropriate time, then invite
And
other.
in addition, the Board of Health had not apparently been contacted in a timely manner, and that's what led to the cease and desist order, and a little confusion about communication there. And I know the Board of Assessors had not been contacted, and that was, a taxable structure.
I
So
was confused about, you said something about having to fill out a form that doesn't exist?
that's right. Yeah, at the time of the hearing, I guess he's called the health agent, Charlie Konecki, was going to be helping to create a form in order to make the application for the toilet that's now being utilized on the property.
For a feature of the...
For a feature of that, not
Okay, that's a-
for everything.
okay.
It's only the part. And then I think the Conservation Commission needs to know, too, because this property is right next to conservation land. I think there's potential for a lot of things to be certain the various boards and committees know about it. I don't know if Stephen was going to say
Okay, well, why
something.
don't we, maybe throw it back to, you guys.
Planning
should
board
bring it
might
back
be
to
a good
planning board as an
starting
idea.
point, but maybe you want to get together a lot of people.
Yep, Stephen?
You ready?
Yeah.
I have a question for you, Cindy. Do you think that it's a short-term rental bylaw in the zoning code that we need? Or is the Board of Health also wrestling with the building code and standards that would be perhaps different for this use?
I really can't answer that, Stephen. I really can't tell you exactly what. For one thing, our health director was unable to be present at that hearing. She was unavailable. I think she was unwell. And I want to make sure that I can't answer it directly. And so I think it's not right for me to sort of guess what they're really looking for.
Okay.
But it might be a thought, if this did come back up to planning board and with your consultant to talk about, okay, what fits the best? Is it an Airbnb or is it a short-term rental? And what are the differences?
Yeah, there was this question about a 30-day rental versus a 6-month rental.
Sure.
There were various questions that came out of
Or
the
an Airbnb
hearing.
for a long weekend versus whatever.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, Stephen?
You mentioned that the Concom had not been consulted about riverfront area and adjacent ownership, but did they get a building permit? You mentioned also...
They did contact the building inspector, yes, that was, and I believe at the time, again, I'm not going to detail all of the things that occurred.
Okay,
This was,
okay. Well, that's
and because I
an
don't
avenue
want
to
to say it
explore,
wrong.
don't you think, Dan?
There were communication issues all the way around, and I think versus me making a mistake and saying something that I thought was the case or perhaps wasn't the case, I think it's better that I just tell you that this has to be looked at a little more closely. And starting with the planning
So
board.
generalizing away from the particular instance
That
of
is
this
correct.
property.
Generalize,
Dan,
stand back, become aware of this being a need for our town at this point, certainly at this point in town.
Dan, have you captured that to take back to the chair of the planning board?
Typing it up right now.
Very good.
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you very much.
Because I don't want to carry that
Yeah, we're not
message.
going to redo the hearing, but thanks for bringing that to our attention.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the third thing is Open Space Committee. There's only one quick thing to add to the announcement you made about Celebrate Southampton. Among other things we're attempting to do is draw attention to our open spaces, and we are holding at 8 a.m. on Saturday morning a town walk on one of our conservation lands. It's not, unfortunately, we didn't get it on the whole roster of events for this Saturday, but that was noted by Tammy Walunas because I put her on an email list. I think she was going to post it on a Facebook page. At 8 a.m., we're going to be walking on Wolf Hill Sanctuary, rain or shine, and I will lead the hike, and it's a perfect hike for beginners. It doesn't have to be, it's only a 1.3-mile loop. It's beautiful. I walked it the other day, and I've been in touch with Barry Searle, who actually owns the property. So that is something, and if you just want to show up, it's, I think, right across from 110 Fulmer Road in our town. It's called Wolf Hill Sanctuary. 8 a.m., come early, Saturday morning. Thanks.
Okay, sounds good. Is that it?
Yep.
Okay, Dan, anything?
No technology committee meeting since last time. Important one from the Conservation Commission, or talking around our footbridge crossing the Manhand. So that conversation came up again, and as you all know, we have a grant that would expire, I believe it's at the end of the calendar year. So the determination of how we can spend the monies that have been allocated to us through that grant to best serve the town. And also, what do we do if, say, there's more to the project than just the monies that the grant has allocated to us. There's also the talk about the installation and the design around that installation that needs to occur. So I would recommend that we pull, I would say, a small committee of interested parties together to get a plan together as a town for how we're going to go about making this happen. It seems like maybe with the transition of the Conservation Commission leadership, some things aren't obvious as to what direction we needed to take. So I think it would be best, maybe under the select board, I can pull together, like myself, Randall, I think I can ask Art if he'd still want to be involved. And I can see who else would be involved. But getting those people together and just writing up what's the project plan associated with where we are today to where we got to get this bridge installed. That's my advice.
I know, Scott, you had discussions with the actual engineer from the bridge company itself, right?
Yep.
So that Scott should be involved in that, obviously.
Oh, yeah, so I guess that's my request, the permission to form that subcommittee to get this bridge thing just
Let's just call it a working committee, just to
Working
get...
committee, whatever we want.
Yeah, advisory committee to Scott,
Okay.
whatever it can be. Yeah.
All right, so I'll take that action to get that committee formed and give to the select board and Scott the plan that takes us from where we are today to the bridge installed.
Yeah. Well, and it's really a plan for Concom or so. I mean,
True,
they're
yeah.
the ones that have the grant, so.
Yeah.
I mean, we need to be informed, but
A
it's their
plan for
action.
the town.
It's their action. Yeah, no, exactly.
The other important topic that came up is starting to have the conversation around maintenance and rotation plan around the care of our conservation lands and the trails and the open fields and I think you'd also want to include the forest cutting plans and all those great things in it as well. Getting that documented so we can start getting that maintenance done on a regular basis. So right now we're lucky to have some great volunteers in this town who when they are available do maintain these trails, but it is kind of at an ad hoc basis, and I think we need to put a little more thought around that. So I want to make sure that the town is aware that that's something the Conservation Commission will be thinking about. So
So they'll be pulling that together? Or?
yeah, we're going to pull that together.
Okay.
But it's an important thing.
Do you want to announce the email address of the volunteer group in case somebody wants to join, happens to be listening tonight?
Yes.
It's called Trails 01073. That's Trails with an S, 01073@gmail.com. If there's anybody listening who just wants to receive notices of various work parties that are happening, we always keep the Conservation Commission informed. It's called the Trailblazers.
I think we should put that on our town Conservation Commission page. We should talk to Brittany
We'll work
about
on that. Okay,
let's talk about it.
good. Thanks, Dan.
Cool. The last one is the planning board. The important thing to mention is I had a chance to follow up with PVPC to see what the status of our DLTA grant that was awarded to us around the bylaws around our water supply protection and the reformation of the BayPAC group, which is a consortium of a number of towns that use the Barnes Aquifer. So we're picking that up in September to get that started. I think Patty Gambarini will be involved again in starting conversations with Westfield. So
Is that grant still active? Is that?
that grant is still active. It's a new one, I guess you could say.
Brand new.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so part of it is updating the town's bylaws.
Yeah.
So defining how we will protect our water supply in those zones associated with it. And that goes back to getting any gas stations or other facilities installed in town in a manner that protects our water supply, but also allows us to have those amenities. And the other part of it is addressing the BayPAC group and trying to get that reestablished so that we don't have different rules and regulations for protecting the same aquifer.
Right. Well, I was going to suggest, I was going to say that I remember from before, I mean, that was a consortium of towns that had to agree to things, and for various reasons, towns fell out over time. And so I would think that would have to be a big step, too, of just getting other towns on board to see if they want to reactivate the commission. So,
Yes.
Yeah.
So that action is with PVPC.
Yeah, okay, very good.
Those are my things.
All right, good. All right, Stephen?
Planning board, Cindy's covered open space plenty, but Dan omitted that the planning board has scheduled a joint meeting with the Housing Authority for August 14th at 7 p.m. to learn about Chapter 40R. This is introduction educational program, and I believe that we've now gotten an invitation issued to the Select Board. The Select Board at a prior meeting had indicated, I'm sorry. The Select Board at a prior meeting had indicated significant interest in also learning about 40R. So Scott may have the latest news on this. Last I heard, we had a meeting, but not a presenter.
I did reach out to Paul. I'm just waiting for confirmation on who's going to actually be doing the presentation. I'm pretty sure that it was scheduled for Ken Comia from the Pioneer Valley Planning Commission. I'm just waiting for confirmation, so.
Okay, and the date was the 14th, you said?
Well, we've had a list of hoped-for personalities to present, but the chair of the planning board has not gotten confirmation from any presenter.
Okay.
And what was the question? Sorry. Madam Chair.
No, just at the date. I was just, yeah.
14th.
Yeah, okay, that's
And
fine.
it'll be at 7 p.m.
Okay.
And it has been noticed for at least the Housing Authority and the Planning Board.
Okay. We'd have to post it ourselves. We don't have it posted yet, that I know of. Yeah, okay.
Yep.
All right, good. Anything else?
We do need to confirm the presenter.
Yeah, no, we'll leave that to
Very good.
them. Anything else?
No, thank you.
All right, John?
No, all my committees are in summer recess.
Very good. All right. Just briefly on my end, we'll have a cost efficiencies meeting next week on the 14th. In the afternoon, a Zoom call as usual. And then we did get word back on the Brun Historical Grant, which is the one where we had put out a request to do, get some funds for repointing the brickwork on a large portion of the old town hall, current police station. Unfortunately, we did not get it. There were 15 projects competing for $650,000, and their funding requests were over $1.3 million. So there were 7 grants awarded, but we were number 8, so we are actually the first alternate. Officially, we're called the first alternate. So if some other town can't get it done in terms of whatever they'd planned, we definitely get to be on the list. We're waiting, they're supposed to be giving us feedback as to how we might have strengthened our application, et cetera, so I'm still waiting for that information, but they encouraged us, even if we don't get in on the alternate route this year, that we should, continue to apply for it next year. So it was sort of bittersweet, but, okay, we at least made it in halfway on the list, and I don't know what other communities were ahead of us or what kind of projects they were doing, so we'll find that out in a bit. But that, and then I've been checking regularly on the big one that we're really waiting for, which is the Assistance to Firefighters Grant. They are rolling these out, it seems to be every Friday, and I've checked for the last 3 Fridays, and we're not on the list yet. But I talked to Chief Anderson, who had helped us write the grant, and he said not to get discouraged because they keep on rolling them out. It's a slow rolling process. So we'll keep our fingers crossed and see if we manage to get at least one of the 2 grants we applied for. But
2 grants.
No, yeah, nothing yet. So we'll keep hoping on that one.
Do you have any indication whether one is more favorably received?
No, we have no information at all. Nothing. That's what's so frustrating, but yeah.
Congratulations for taking a big roll of the dice.
Yeah, well, we've got it in there, but it's,
We need a pumper truck.
don't know
one way or the other.
what our competition is. It's it's a federal grant, so it's a lot of competition on that one. But okay, that's about it on that. So on the agenda, let's pick up some new business. Let's see. Scott, I'll let you take on this. Council on Aging Director Recruitment.
So in the 2 weeks that I had mentioned forming a search committee, I had posted the job both at the town clerk's office and on the website, just because it's good to get it out there, but it's a requirement of our bylaws to post it for a certain amount of time. And in that 2 weeks, we did have a strong internal candidate that expressed interest and did apply for the position. So before we kind of took the next step of forming a formal search committee and spending money on advertisement, I might make the suggestion that the select board kind of pursue an internal candidate first, do the process, and if that doesn't work out, then we could expand the search to external candidates.
And that's all acceptable to our town rules, that if it's an internal candidate, we don't have to do the same search and review process?
Well, regardless, we have to post it and make it
Okay.
available. As far as review, it doesn't really differentiate between internal and external. If it was a union position, usually there's seniority and you can bid for a position first. But
Yep.
since this is a non-union position.
We're good. Okay, thank you.
Any comments, thoughts on that at all?
I don't have any objection, provided it's done in short order. You know, whatever the internal process
Yeah.
is.
I mean,
You know,
it seems a
a
little
week
bit-
or two, it's just a slight delay if it doesn't work out.
Right, yeah. Okay. I mean, it seems like, I mean, we sort of went a little bit down that road with the fire chief, right? We had a committee, and then
Yep.
we ended up going more with an internal candidate, so it's not totally unlike that in a way.
I think from an employee point of view or employer morale-wise, anytime an internal person comes forward, they get the courtesy of the interview.
Yeah.
And they get a truthful response. If they're not selected, why, and what can they do
Sure.
better next time around to enhance? But
Right.
to bypass them altogether when they've expressed interest is never a
Right.
good
Yeah,
course of action.
right, okay. Yeah, no, and I think it's probably a wise move to try that first before we spend money on recruiting and all that kind of stuff, advertising, so, yeah, I'm generally in favor of that recommendation.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. So
I'll,
you'll work on interviewing or figure that out with the COA or however
Yes,
that
yeah,
process
so
will
I'll kind of put together maybe a little timeline and some different steps that we could use before, and bring the candidate before the select board and some of the other stakeholders, the COA board chair, the Friends, Senior Center Building Committee.
Yeah.
You'd probably want everyone involved as well.
Okay. All right. Okay. All right. FY #23 status of the audit. Not sure, 23, 22, both? Or
22 is almost completed. There's just one little issue with uploading it to the federal website that I'm waiting for Markham to help me with. I did forward to the select board the verbal recommendations for the audit, which I thought were actually a little bit more useful than the other recommendations that they put forward. But yeah, it does show that we have some work to do moving forward. The
On that list.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't disagree with anything that's on there, but I just don't understand number 10. And I don't know if they've got a
yeah.
different word in there. So they recommend the town keep a compensated absence schedule for the town and school.
So how's that different than our regular payroll where people are marking that they're on leave?
Well,
or-
compensated. I mean, I know in the new payroll system we put in place, the accruals are there, right? I mean, your time's there. Is that what they mean, just what's available? But using the word compensated tells me someone's out and we're paying somebody else to do that job, and how's that costing us money? Like substitute teachers? I just don't understand that one sentence.
Oh, I see, yeah.
That's all.
I might guess that it's, if there's any type of sick buyback or any type of vacation accrual that at the end of employment, that there would be a liability for that, but that's only a guess.
Well, that would make,
Check with
yeah.
Markham.
Yep. Which goes along with marking the time on the book. Okay.
Okay, and I guess I thought it would be like vacation leave or something like that, so I totally read it differently. Okay, that's, yeah, be good to find out, yeah.
I read it as paid time off.
Mm-hmm.
Where did we end up? What
Well,
is the
if
understanding?
everything above that, I mean, it does make sense that municipalities are supposed to, under GASB, record potential liabilities. So if someone would separate on June 30th, so many days are available, so it would be the vacation. I don't think we pay, but some contracts, we do sick time on the teacher side. So if that's where they're going, a line item on the balance sheet for reflection, because of some of the things above there with free cash and all that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, and I think a couple of these things are a little bit challenging because, again, they're making these recommendations based on the audit from 2022. And obviously, with all the various delays, these verbal recommendations that were not part of the management letter are things for us to look at, but recommend timesheets be approved by department heads. As far as I know, should be happening.
But back in 2022, it wasn't.
And back in '22, it wasn't, right? But over that, it's been corrected over time. So that's the kind of thing where, I think they're probably, as you try to, you've got to actually answer these, Scott, in writing?
No, these are just suggestions.
Just suggestions, okay. Yeah, Cindy?
So I'd like to comment on that one. I mean, I'm actually going to raise a question about it. So I'm the chair of the Board of Assessors, and the department head, I guess, is our principal assessor. And when he was the interim assessor, somebody from the Board of Assessors, the chair usually, was signing his timesheet.
Right.
And now I discovered that he was told that isn't necessary, that he can sign his own timesheet or have, and that I double-checked this with the previous chair. The previous principal assessors, previously, nobody signed their timesheets.
Well, that's what's being talked about.
Exactly, and I'm going to bring that up because he is also, which is perfectly fine, he's signing it for the administrative person in the office.
That's appropriate, yeah.
But if this indicates that they've noted that department heads haven't had anybody else looking at their timesheets, which is apparently the case here, I really strongly recommend that one. And I kind of wonder how that's working with other, for example, the director of the library, and
Library trustees signs on that.
are they signing on it, though? They are?
But I think this comes back to, there is no formal policy on the books. There's no bylaw on the books, so it's up to interpretation. So we should put something in place, and it wouldn't be well, I mean, you could put it in the handbook, in the PPP book, but that's only going to address non-union people. So it's almost like there should be a bylaw. Everything should be signed by the person, exactly, by the person.
I didn't hear what you said, Chris. What did you say?
Select board policy.
A select board
rather than a
policy,
bylaw.
okay.
But I mean, I know at one point in time, it came up with the Board of Health, and so.
Yeah, that was another one.
The chair of the Board of Health signs the health director's timesheet. I mean, those things have been put into place since I've been on the select board.
Oh, and they have been
This is kind of
happening?
old news, but it's, things
Okay.
that need to get still corrected perhaps. But, that was one that I thought was already dealt with, but maybe not totally. And then a couple of other things I didn't totally understand. John, on number
So,
7.
like,
the
internal
activity
student
reports?
activity audits should be completed for schools with less than 25,000 in expenditures. Correct, because there's a state law that when it's above 25,000, it's subject, the auditors have to test it.
Okay.
Below that, they don't, it's a de minimis act. So the Norris, which would be the only one that would fall under here, I think it sits somewhere between $4,700 and $5,200 a year.
Okay.
Is in that account, but no one's done an audit.
Okay, I guess I wasn't sure what
Test it.
an internal student activity audit meant, so.
That we do it instead of Markham. And then, but just going down the right, so number 1, I believe Bradley's already taken care of that. Number 2, we've been asking for, so that one hasn't been done yet, because if we're going to need to borrow here at some point, and if we have authorization already on the books, that's going to limit how much we can borrow, right? So there should be a running list of this that the clerk has and the treasurer certifies across timesheets. We talked about that. Record investments at market value. That's best practices. Right now, probably what's happening is they only get recorded on June 30th versus, ongoing basis. We have a line of the encumbrance. I would suggest this isn't happening because when we looked at the last budget, or not budget, but end of year numbers, there's a line item there with, I think it was like $27,000 in change for encumbrance. We asked for the detail on what that was. It hasn't come forward. Although I will say, this year, when we closed the books in Bradley's reports, he did provide much more detail on what the encumbrance were in that.
Yeah.
So, again, if we get all the way up to 24, I think that's been taken care of.
Yeah. The formal indirect cost policy, you said, I think, you're having Bradley work on a couple policy
Yeah.
drafts, or?
Yeah, and that's something that mostly affects the enterprise funds. And it has been updated in a while. There's a best practice out there that
Yeah.
I think we're going to try to adopt for this budget cycle. It makes it a little bit more accurate.
Well, I think anything we need to do to, again, create, if it doesn't exist, a select board policy, it seems to me that's the simplest way to go, rather than, I don't think any of this really requires a bylaw per se. It's a select board policy, I would think.
And with the new website, aren't we posting our minutes after we approve them?
They're not on the website, they're in my town gov.
But they're available to the public. We
They're
just have to
available
direct
the
people to the right
public,
spot, so.
They're available to the public, yeah.
On that particular one, if that one stays there, it's just pointing it out to the auditors that
Yeah.
here's where you go find them.
Right, here's where they are, yeah, exactly. So, yeah, it would be a lot to put everything there on the website as well as on MyTownGov, so. So they're not on the website, they're on MyTownGov, yep. Cindy, question? No?
So they're on My Town Government, but they're not on the website, the
Not
minutes?
putting the minutes on the website, no.
I see, okay.
No,
Very good, thank you.
no, they're elsewhere. They're
Yep,
they're
yep,
very,
yeah, I got it, thank you.
very accessible to anybody who wants them, but yeah. Okay, very good. Well, thanks for all that. And so then 23, where are we on 23? That was sort of the closeout of 22, Scott. So how far along are they in 23? I know we had talked about, too, getting the engagement letter signed up for
24.
24?
Yeah. They want to get a little bit more done on 23 before we do the engagement letter for 24. We want to get a little bit further into that process. I don't think much has happened since the initial request for information from Bradley and Jen. So,
Because when I got the impression, I think when Tanya was here, that doing the audit, as soon as she got it, it was only going to take
If
a few weeks to do it, right?
I guess it's by
short amount of
September, they're going to be
time,
back
so-
in their rotation.
Yeah, so if they have everything that they need, so I guess that would be worth following up on and not just assume that they have everything that they need, but I think I would just recommend that you also reach out to Tanya just to say, you know, do you need anything else from us? And, you know, I think that would be helpful. But I don't quite understand why the engagement letter for 24 would affect anything, but if she doesn't want it right now, we'll put it off for another couple weeks or something. Yeah, Stephen?
Is the FY23 audit being held in suspense while the questions from 22 are pending?
no, those are all set. Everything's been submitted to Markham with the answers to the management letter. It's just, there's a technical issue about getting them up to the federal website. They've already acknowledged everything and accepted them.
Yeah.
So 22 is about to be finished and published?
Yes, yeah, everything's except for the uploading to the FAC.gov, I think.
The federal website for the,
Yeah.
yeah.
So journal entries have been approved, or starting balances for 23 audit?
Yes. Yeah, it should be,
Because we're still trying to figure out where we stand here in August of 24.
I know. Okay, next up, green energy approvals. Are we still waiting on Eversource?
just waiting on Eversource, yes. And everything's been approved though, except for the final signature, and then been talking to the company, and they're just waiting for the installation date once Eversource signs off on
And
it.
this will be it won't be Eversource directly. Who's going to do the installation, I guess, is the question. Is it?
I think it was-
Is it themselves or a company of theirs, or?
It's a designated vendor by the state. It's,
So we don't have to go out for bid for the installation. I guess that's my real question.
no, this company handles it. They're specific for the state designates them.
So once somebody puts their final signature on it, okay,
Yep, energyresourcesusa.net.
okay. All right. Well, and again, I don't know, I know people may be on vacation for August and whatever, but I just kind of like nudging, you know, we've had so many times where we sit back and kind of assume something is happening, and then all of a sudden a month goes by and we're that much farther behind. So the more we can do to shoot off an email or a quick phone call, I would just highly recommend that. Wi-Fi installation, I think you told us about already, and we're waiting on Novus to come back around on that one, right? Okay, good. That'll be quite a novelty to have Wi-Fi in this building, my gosh.
Maybe we should have our fence inspector look at it.
All right, next up, College Highway land acquisition update.
Meeting with Katie tomorrow, just go over final checklist of everything that needs to be done. We should still be on target for closing before September 30th.
Okay,
Can we ask hard questions in open session? I was a little surprised that we didn't have an executive session for negotiations.
negotiations for which?
This purchase, this very same purchase. Has the purchase and sale contract
Thought you
been
did.
signed by all parties?
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. Last time I asked, I got a no, so. It was not signed at the time of the town meeting.
Oh, town meeting.
No, at the time, no. Yeah.
The beginning of my concern.
Okay, yeah.
And because of open meeting law and the sensitivity of negotiations, real estate transactions,
Yeah.
we have gotten a very high-level briefing, not the blood and guts. And it's a very, very big commitment that the town took on,
Right.
both at annual town meeting and special election to approve the borrowing.
Right.
The lights are bright upon us as a Board of Selectmen to do a competent job and a thorough job. So I think we need an acquisition subcommittee to assist the town administrator in carrying out all the details on this very complex and very significant acquisition.
Well, I mean, the purchase and sale has been dealt with since the town meeting, and that was, I think, available before the election, if I'm not mistaken. And that's up on our website.
Okay.
So that's there in terms of the actual purchase and sale, which was for 2.1 million, am I right? 2.2 million.
2.2.
2.2. So that part's been dealt with. So getting through all the next steps, working with legal counsel on finalizing everything that has to be done is
Closing
what I think he's doing.
checklist,
Yeah, that's what
reviewing
he's-
title.
That's what Scott's working on with our legal counsel, and I think that's where it belongs. He's the town administrator to do that. I don't think a subcommittee of us to help do that is going to be particularly helpful in my mind.
So basically, it'll be the making sure that the funds are available to transfer
Right,
to
I mean, you
KP
gotta-
Law. We just need a certified copy of the town meeting from the town clerk. And then the select board eventually would need to approve the acceptance for the deed prior to closing.
Yeah. So, and part of it, the more challenging part, I would think, would be the timing in terms of the borrowing and having the money available at closing. And so that's what you're working on with
Yes.
Jen to work out. So those are things that I think are already underway with Scott and relevant people. So
We've gotten
think that-
very high-level briefing, and that really hasn't been detailed.
Okay.
So with respect to the closing, the acquisition per se, I'm good.
That's our big first step to get through in the next, before the
The
next 60
proposal will be
days.
re-floated when we get to the land planning.
Oh, yeah,
piece.
absolutely, yeah.
Well, you know, that's only 2 agenda items ahead, so.
Okay. All right.
Did I miss something, or did we got the update largely in the town administrator's report?
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
I think so, yeah.
For the land acquisition or the planning?
No,
College Highway Land Acquisition Update.
yeah. So just still on track for September 30th or earlier. And that's still the plan. So working with our legal counsel to go through all the checklist of what has to still happen. Just being sure that we've got the title search complete is the biggest thing out of that bunch probably right now. And then working with Jen on borrowing would be the two
Please
big ones.
understand, I'm only trying to
No,
expand
I'm
the team, not to
Yeah, no,
supplant
it's
our
fine.
good
Yeah,
professionals.
but I think sometimes things can get done very quickly when it's a smaller team. So I don't see a need to expand a team on this particular thing. And when we get to land use, I think that's a different story.
I hear you.
So this is a separate thing that I think it's totally in the purview of the town administrator. That's what we have you here to manage for us. So let's keep on that plan. Manhattan Bridge update. You want to say a little bit more about the phone call maybe? And
So we were able to meet with the bridge, I guess, the engineer and the producer of the bridges, the fiberglass bridge out of Pennsylvania, just get a little bit more information on scheduling and what the time could possibly be, and, you know, to get their opinion on how the abutments were designed, and see if they might have any alternatives. One of the things that they did send over was some of the designs of abutments that they've used in the past. Of course, the disclaimer is, they don't know our specific site, so they don't know the soils, they don't know the floodplains or Mass DEP regulations or anything like that. But I think it might be something that we can use to maybe talk to some of the other engineers that we've used in the past to kind of see if that might be feasible. As far as timing in the grant does expire at the end of the calendar year. One of the problems with with where the bridge is located is it's an environmentally sensitive area, so we can't install it at any time. The other issue is the time that it would need to produce the bridge. So it's going to take about, I think it was 3 to 4 weeks for the engineering part of the bridge to be completed. And then it's...
Put it together to assemble the bridge, you mean?
Oh, the engineering part, to design it, and then the assembly, the production, and then the shipping of the bridge would be a few months extra. So we're really cutting it close in the November, December timeline about potentially getting the bridge and using some of the funds. One thing that I talked to the Conservation Commission yesterday about was using $2,600 from the grant to at least get the engineering part of the bridge done. And we would at least have that part done, and whether we decide moving forward with the bridge this year and storing it somewhere, or just having the designs for next year and reapplying for the grant and doing a more of a robust RFP, that would be an option as well. But either way, we're going to have to spend some funds for the engineering part of the bridge, so this would accomplish that.
Okay, so this 2,600 would get us engineering plan specific for this type of bridge.
Yep. The one good thing is that the quote really didn't go up that much. The original quote from 3 or 4 years ago was right around $84,000. That was for a 75-foot by 3-foot bridge. An updated quote for a 75-foot by 4-foot came in at a little over $88,000. So it really didn't go that much more expensive. So for the additional foot width and inflation the last couple of years.
Okay, so my understanding is we've got money from the grant, and I think you said there was CPC money as a match, most likely, right, for that. So no matter what we did, if we were able to get this and get the bridge, we still would have to go back for another grant or some other source of funding to install it, because we don't have the funds available to actually put it in the ground. We couldn't do it this fall probably anyway.
Right.
Okay. So what did Concom think about that? I mean,
they approved the $2,600 to go forward with the engineering draft, I guess, for the bridge.
Okay. So do we need to talk to Mass Trails maybe about, at least trying to, would they be okay with us getting it, but maybe not getting it all installed this year, I wonder?
Hopefully. I mean, I can reach out to them, definitely. They did mention that, it does expire till the end of the year, so if we were able to do something before then.
Yeah.
But I don't think we would have the complete funding for the $250,000 this year, so.
Right. Okay. And we'd have to go back out for some sort of bid anyway on the installation, right? So,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's really the installation of the bridge really isn't, there might need to be, the way he explained, there might need to be some support in the middle for the installation part, but the real work is in the abutments, is how you hold the bridge up.
Yeah, okay. Okay, yes, Stephen.
The engineer has been identified or not yet identified?
This engineer is part of the bridge production, the builder of the bridge.
Do they have a copy of the Chapter 91 license? And does the Chapter 91 license have an expiration date?
That I'm not sure, but they do contract out with a Massachusetts engineer that would stamp it, so it would comply with all the Massachusetts laws.
Sure. It took years to receive the Chapter 91 license, and my understanding is that that involves issues that are outside of the Concom's jurisdiction and expertise. It has to deal with federal floodplain issues, and the idea about putting an abutment anywhere but outside of the floodplain. I just want to make sure that before anybody goes down that track, they have a copy of the permit, and as we look at grant horizons and need for yet money, we don't want to end up with a bridge on land
Yep.
and no permit to put it over the
Right.
creek.
Yeah, well, we've got a copy, I'm sure, of the permit that could be sent off to that company, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm sure
Good idea, yeah.
they'll also have the wetlands order from the Concom. That's
Okay.
the companion,
Yeah.
they're separate jurisdictions.
Yeah. So what this gets us then is the engineers, the principal engineers stamped approval of a design. I mean, it's the actual design that,
For the bridge itself.
for the bridge itself, yeah. That's the 2,600, I guess, yeah.
So I certainly have been on the outside of all of this, but I have been around. And didn't we pay somebody named Collingsworth or something similar to that? Multiple thousands of dollars. Took a long time to get whatever. He's the one that came in with, it's going to cost $250,000, and that was only a few months ago. What did we pay him for? Isn't he he's a professional engineer. He's a PE. I know that was part of it. What was the purpose of his involvement, if anybody can answer that? I don't know.
I don't know, that was done at Concom level, and they contracted out to get some thoughts about the installation, I think. And I think part of what we had talked about was, okay, we got that, but
Yeah.
it seems really heavy duty. We know that right now we can't afford it. And nobody had gone back to talk to the bridge company
Yeah.
itself, saying, you purport to be able to do this. These are supposed to be easily assemblable bridges. You've done them around the area and around the country. Is this unusual? And what are we getting for what we've asked for? So I think that was your discussion. So I was in on the conversation as well as Diana to talk about that with the bridge company, just to get an idea from them as to, is this
Right.
bridge doable, or is this, are we maybe over-designing something? So
There've
that
been
was
a
the
lot
question.
of people over the years, literally over the years, that had some involvement. And I was at Concom last night when Dan was desperately trying to take notes like an engineer and figure out where you were going with this whole thing. And I
Halfway through, I realized it was too big of a problem to solve right then and there.
couldn't be solved right there, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we'll get some information hopefully from these people and find out from there what the next steps would be. But it's not to say that the Collingsworth thing is out the window. It's just that
Yeah.
I think, I was certainly of the opinion, I think Scott too, that we didn't want to just take that without going back to the actual bridge
Right.
company saying, what's the deal here? We may have missed something. It might have been an oversight on our part when we understood what this all entailed, but let's be sure that we know what we're talking about first before we throw it out the window. So we'll just take a small next step and see what that gets us, okay?
I think the important thing to note there is we did fund the bridge design to be tailored to our needs, so that does not delay us getting the bridge within this calendar year.
Possibly, yeah.
So that's still on the table. And we'll figure out the rest as we go.
Okay. All right, any other business that can't wait until the regular meeting, and then we'll go back into some of the other
I have,
agenda items? Yeah.
well, I just have one thing, because I don't see it later on in the agenda. Were we successful in making an offer to an assistant auditor?
Yeah, got it.
Is it in process?
It is in process. We've identified a candidate, and
Wait, assistant accountant, you mean?
Assistant accountant, yeah.
Okay, it's like, wait a minute.
we
Okay.
hope to move forward this week.
Okay. That's all I have.
So someone has been interviewed, selected, and basically, yeah,
We hope to send them an offer letter in the next day or two.
perfect. Okay, that'll be great. Yeah, thanks. How did we miss that one on the agenda? Sorry. Okay, old business, is there anything in that thing? I think some of the capital asset planning, we'll try and take up a little bit at the cost efficiencies meeting. Surplus equipment, again, I'm going to see if I can corral Judy long enough for part of a day to look at that. And then the cannabis we'll be talking about later on tonight in an executive session, I think.
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
seems that we didn't have a robust discussion about land use planning.
I thought it was on the agenda. Where did it go?
It is.
Oh, I'm looking at the wrong, hello.
Yeah.
The agenda got revised. I'm sorry. It's on, yep, it was right before any other business. Sorry, I have an old agenda that didn't have that on there. Sorry. Land use planning, yeah. Zero College Highway. Scott, update on that one, sorry.
So Stephen did put together a scope, potential scope that we could work off of. I did meet briefly with Pioneer Valley Planning Commission just to kind of get an idea because of our relationship with the PVPC and their quasi-state status. I did meet with Kim Camilla and his assistant, and they're going to put together just a scope for us, just to kind of review, and that's something that we can work off as well. But I think I want to try to arrange some meetings with some other companies like Berkshire Design and a few other ones, just to kind of have some informal conversations with them, to kind of work together, get an idea, an estimate of how much it's going to cost. One of the things that came up during the Public Safety Building Committee when we met with HKT was how much that would cost, and Amy just, she gave us a rough estimate of how much it would cost for the 52 acres, and it'd probably be over $100,000. So we want to make sure that we're getting as much information right now before we jump into the scope, and then do an official RFP, and a lot of the stuff that Stephen had mentioned would be part of that. And then also with, just to note his mention of a new position of planner, which I think kind of coincides with this as well. That it's going to probably have to take a parallel path with this. But I think that's something that I've started to look at some different job descriptions from communities and put together some drafts, very early stages about what could potentially be a position like that. But I think we definitely would need some help on the planning side for the town, and it'd be great to have someone on staff.
Okay, great. All right. Other thoughts?
Yeah, sure. So I circulated this proposed scope of services to a variety of public officials, committees, boards, and the intention was to see if this reflects what we as the town are looking for in terms of services, rather than going blind to the professional world and saying, tell us what we should do first, second, and third. So this was an attempt to speak with one voice for the town. I've not gotten any specific feedback except one good job. And I think that it's very important as we look at buying a suite of services that run in two very different directions. Sometimes they're in the same firm, and often they're not. Public facilitation and engagement is a key piece, in addition to drawing up a subdivision plan and a disposition plan for the town to deal with the parks. And, I think it's very important, if that's what we want, that we say it with one voice, and we say it equally to others. I don't know how PVPC might propose a scope without hearing what we need.
Well, I guess, I don't know, yeah, that's a different meeting, because the other meeting with them is for the 40R, right? So we don't have anything set up with them on that.
It's similar about, bringing up the public engagement, things that they've done in the past, like, some of the work that they've done with like Munson and other communities about public engagement. They probably wouldn't be able to do the technical part of it, so they're more focused on the public consensus building, and then they would probably have to go out and get another firm. One of the advantages, just because they are the quasi-public, we wouldn't have to go through the RFP process with them. But we would still, I still think we need to look at all the options.
So just my general feedback, if we do this with PVPC, this will be my third rodeo with them on the select board, and the first two didn't, nothing came out of it.
It was personnel related, yeah.
Yeah, it was a complete waste of our time and resources, and they're just not equipped to handle it. I feel like them the same way I feel about the Collins Institute. They have all these templates on the shelf, and they just pull it down, and here you go, this is it. As far as what to do with the land over there, I'm not opposed to, I guess I'm neutral right now on whether we should even be going down this road. But I understand why to do it. But I think the first thing that needs to happen, maybe this is part of it, is that we need to get, the five of us sitting here can't decide what to do with this land. We need the 6,700 citizens out there to tell us what it's going to be to do. Now, if going down this route will rule certain things out before they even start, okay, might do that, but I think we have to get a lot of feedback and understand this. And short of the Public Safety Building Council on Aging, those things, time is of the essence. They need to get done. What to do the other stuff. Now, that doesn't mean that this is not step one of a 2-year walk in the park, that I'm all for doing it, but
No, and I think just to pick up on PVPC, I know we've had our challenges, especially on the HR side. I mean, no argument there. We did, however, use them very well, and Ken Comia in particular, with the master plan update a few years ago, did a very good work plan with us, various public sessions and surveys and all sorts of things to update our master plan.
Yeah.
And so Ken was really the one that led us through that. He did a great job, I thought, on that. So I think they have their levels of expertise. I think it may depend on certain personnel, but Ken also knows the town very well. He's worked with the planning board before.
And that's the other thing. What does the master plan say right now, right? Because that needs to be taken into consideration. But
Yeah.
I have also found in my, not as many decades as other members of the board here, but of work life, that consultants, they're paid to professionally position your opinion in a way that gets sold. You tell the consultant what you want, and then they make the report look that way. Again, I'm skeptical.
Yeah,
but
okay.
I'd also point out that Ken Comia,
Yeah.
one of the principals at Pioneer Valley Planning, who you endorsed just now, immediately mentioned other resources at Mass Housing Partnership and also at the Executive Office of Livable Communities. So I think that they ought to be tapped for information about who delivers, who's been successful in bringing forward either new town, new village physical plans, or in the other case, 40R districts, as we may get down the road and these issues come together.
So let me add a few things, too. When the update of the open space and recreation plan was done a few years ago, I don't recall the individual's name who was with Pioneer Valley Planning Commission. It was a woman. She headed us in a very good direction, was very experienced. As it turned out, our then town administrator kind of took it from that point, and we moved forward. So I will say, in addition to your comments about various professionals through PVPC, can be excellent. It doesn't mean every single experience is not good. The second thing is that I'm going to say more than a good job, Stephen. I really think that I read this through, and I felt like this is a really good jumping off point to have you spend the time to create this document, to have us. I get the sense that we got to do it. We got to make this work. And I've been a part of a couple meetings with you that you've brought it up, and it's a good thing that we're doing this. And finally, that we don't have a lot of other land. We got to use this land so well. So I'm just going to say more than it's a good job. I really think we need to jump off from this point where Stephen just
and I think there's a lot. I mean, for me, it's a good overview, and I would call it more than an outline, but there's details I think that would still need to be filled in if it was a full scope of services, right? So
Absolutely.
It's a good conceptual thought of, here's the big lines of what we want. But if I go back and look at, the RFPs that we've had to put out for the public safety building or the senior center building, I mean, that is, much more a level of detail that really entails some of the public engagement requirements and all that kind of stuff. But that's part of what you would ask the entity to provide for you. This is the proposal, but yes, they have to know what we want, right? But here's how we would approach it. And so much of what their answer to us would be is not only on the technical aspects, but how they would go about it, how many staff they would put on it, et cetera, what kind of priority they would give it, right? So I think all of that is really crucial to make
And in the
Yep.
informal stage, we can look at the question of whether it's best to separately contract for facilitation and the technical land planning
Maybe.
piece.
Yeah.
There's reason to do it each way. I mean, go with the specialists, but some firms have it all in-house.
Some have it together, yeah. Dan?
I may be confusing the two things you said, Scott, so I'd appreciate everyone's help in understanding this clearly. You also mentioned the pursuit of a staffed planner in your report. Is this perhaps, you also mentioned this scope of work may be on the order of a six-figure number. Is this perhaps an opportunity to instead of contract this work out, to use this as the first project that a staff planner would accomplish? Is it too much scope of work for one individual, or am I tying the two things together in the wrong way?
Yeah.
Let me zoom back, because
Thank you.
one of the people that I consulted informally to look at this scope said, "You're not proposing that you do this, Stephen, are you?" To be clear, I am trying to assist the select board in being responsible about this. Although I have a master's degree in planning, I am not putting myself forward for this. I'm trying to put some meat on the bones about what we're looking for. And I think that it is not an appropriate first task for a new professional hire. First, we wouldn't be able to do that professional hire and the budgeting and so on in a timely manner. And I raised the question earlier, do you want to go to specialists in facilitation? And very strong CAD people who aren't necessarily high up on the wage scale who can execute what collectively the town designs.
Thank you for cleaning that up for me.
So Scott, the next step from your point of view is to try and connect with Ken and/or some of these other entities and just talk to them about their experience and...
Yeah, I just met with PVPC just as get a little bit more information on what they can do, and using their expertise just kind of point us in the right direction. They don't have the technical expertise, so that's something that they'd have to subcontract out.
Sure.
But I did want to look at some other options as well and have those informal discussions, and hopefully Stephen could join me in on those meetings.
Yeah, well, and just to remind ourselves that we've got, I don't know if they fit into the process, but we've got the on-call engineering firms that are on our docket that we don't have to go out and bid for again, because if they have the qualifications to help us out, there's 3 or 4 of them that are already, on our list in town.
Great.
Or we might just, a thought too, to somehow renew that on-call thing. I'm not sure when that comes up, but we ought to renew that when it comes up too. But, yeah, Dan.
Before we leave the topic, Stephen, you also mentioned that perhaps this land use for this property is something that maybe that we would best serve the town by having a subcommittee that help to formalize the needs of all these groups and entities within our municipality and their thoughts around this. I feel that there's an effort here. Is there some group? Would it facilitate faster execution of this to have some type of group around not the buildings, although we have groups for supporting the senior center and other buildings on this property? Would it also help us to get this done to have a group around the property itself and the use and structure of that property?
Maybe. My personal thought, and I'll turn it over to Stephen too, but my personal thought would be that that's part of what this facilitator would help us do. They would help us. I think it feels like we kind of need that independent person to help orchestrate this and be a facilitator in my head anyway, that, we know we've got interest on public safety, we've got senior center, we've got potential housing, we've got potential parks, we've got potential open space, whatever. But I would see that as the role of this entity, whoever we call it, to bring us together and tease all that stuff out and be that impartial traffic cop, I guess I would say, to help guide a discussion that is a productive discussion. But Stephen?
Well, by and large, I agree with you, Madam Chair. I think before we go out with an RFP, it'd be extremely helpful if we had a one-page vision from each of the entities that have expressed an interest in this property. I'll take parks since it's one of the least fleshed, and it doesn't exist. I'm going to tell you how it might be as an input to the consultant. The Parks Commission, is that the right title? Met and endorsed this goal statement for parks at Zero College Highway. It's the Theodore pickleball courts, and we're going to have 8 of them. And a standard pickleball court is X feet by Y feet, and 8 put in a formation will cover 2 acres, and we need to have whatever we need, 14 parking spaces or 30 parking spaces, so that the footprint is the courts plus the parking. And, you don't have to get to the level of the feasibility studies that have been done for public safety or senior center, although those are plug and play. We could easily summarize
We need to
those.
use that, I think, for the most
We need to go all the way back, as John said.
Yeah.
What does the master plan say? What are the implementation steps? What is the open space plan?
Absolutely, but the
We also
feasibility studies
a
have.
housing production
I
plan.
know, we've got lots of reports.
I didn't want to pick on housing. I think housing is legitimately challenged to do this one-page overview because it's so blue sky. But I think that that's a piece of preparation that we, as the engaged town officials, can do to, again, help provide guidance to whoever picks this up and means to help us.
Yeah, okay. All right. Any further thought on that?
I would volunteer to go round robin to each of the committees that have expressed an interest and see if we can't get this very high level, no commitments, just trying to articulate what is on the wish list in a way that a professional can absorb it more readily.
I wonder if what would be helpful would be to develop kind of a questionnaire.
Yes.
To do
That would be
first,
good, yeah.
5 or 6 questions saying, try to focus on this and then maybe make that kind of round, because I think,
It's really in here. And I can,
so I think that would be a one way to approach that, because I think,
thank you, I
a
will.
lot of that stuff has come out in the 2 feasibility studies in terms of what they want in that wish list, okay? So
Yeah,
some of that
absolutely.
is there, so.
I'd be happy not only to create a blank
Yeah,
template,
so-
but to pre-fill it and validate it with people so that they're not freaked out by having to commit words to paper.
Well, let's have you go ahead with the developing the questionnaire per se and do that part at least, get that rolling
Okay.
in a
What a
questionnaire type
volunteer.
form.
What a
Will that work?
volunteer.
That's an awful slow start. All right, I'll report back on the 20th.
Nobody's meeting until then anyway. The other committees are not meeting for another week or 2.
Well,
So, yeah, I mean, I think,
for a different purpose, is very, very important, intersecting
Right, but I mean, if we-
educational opportunity on the 14th.
okay. Well, I doubt many of them will have a chance to be together before the 14th. So
But
if it were ready to be given to them on the
Didn't want
14th.
people to go on vacation to the 20th.
But if they had it on the 14th, that would be homework for them to get some thought back to their members
I
in
could
terms of
certainly do
who
that.
can be
too.
there. But-
Yep, that's great.
All right.
Planning board
Yep.
isn't necessarily putting forward its own wish list, but would be,
The coordinating body of sorts. Yeah.
well, it could be, if it chooses.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you.
All right, let's move
All
on
done.
to licenses and permits. We have a couple,
Motion to approve one-day wine and malt for Jenny Hutchinson of Southampton for Conant Park, Sunday, September 8th, 2024, from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. for the purposes of a picnic.
Second.
all right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion to approve a one-day wine and malt for Thomas
Baruso?
Moruso of Botona Springs, Florida, for Conant Park, Saturday, September 21st, 2024, from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. for a birthday party, and it should be noted that there will be a three-piece band performing.
All right.
Three?
Okay, can we have a second, please?
Second.
All right, all those in
Get an
favor?
invite.
Aye.
All right. Those are
Folks are coming from Florida to use our
I'm impressed,
parks.
yeah, wow.
We're world
We're
renowned.
on the map.
I read my packet.
Yeah, that's, not sure about all that, but okay. All right. So we have a couple of other documents requiring signature tonight. We've talked about them before, so just a couple of things. Let's pick up the first one. I think you've got in your package the senior center building charge revision. It's in here somewhere, I saw. Mostly the revisions are right at the very beginning. That reflects, I thought, there we go.
Motion to approve it as
Okay,
presented.
all right. Any comment, question, or second first, sorry? Second. All right, any comments or questions on that? If not, I'll take a motion to approve. All those, I'll to vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, very good. And then draft gift policy.
Are we skipping the warrant? For the election?
Oh, yeah, I don't have it in my package, so Scott, what is the warrant for the September 3rd election? You want to read that? I don't have it in my package. I know it must have been coming from Lucy, right?
No, we just got this. Read the whole thing?
Well, I don't know, whatever it is, it's, yeah,
We gotta read it for a motion.
yeah,
Do you want me?
yeah, or somebody can read it.
With the Cindy.
Read it?
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, Commonwealth, Massachusetts, warrant for the 2024 state primary to the constables of the city of, to the town of Southampton. Greetings in the name of the Commonwealth. You are hereby required to notify and warn the inhabitants of said city or town who are qualified to vote in the primaries to vote at Town Hall Senior Center, 210 College Highway on Tuesday, the 3rd day of September 2024, from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. for the following purpose: to cast their votes in the state primaries for the candidates of political parties for the following offices: Senator in Congress for the Commonwealth, Representative in Congress, 1st District, Councilor, 8th District, Senator in General Court, Hampton and Hampshire District, Representative in General Court, 4th Hampton District, Clerk of Courts, Hampshire County, Register of Deeds, Hampshire County, Register of Probate to fill a vacancy, Hampshire District. Hereof fail not and make return of this warrant with your doings thereon at the time and place of said voting. Given in our hands this, and it'll be today's date, I assume, and we all assign it if we agree. City Council or Selectmen, we are the members of the Select Board of Southampton.
Move that we cause the warrant to be authorized and order the constables to post such.
Okay,
That's what I second.
second, all right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, so be it. Thank you. All right, then, the next up, I believe, is the gift policy. Scott, you want to run us through with any small changes that were maybe made on that from last time, or?
Yep, there was just one error that I believe it was in section A6. Instead of, it was substituting to the town to, it should have read by the town. And that was it. It's been on file with the town clerk as well and posted on the website.
Motion to approve the gift policy as presented.
All right,
Second.
okay, second by Stephen. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, great.
Motion to approve the minutes of July 9th, 2024.
And the regular meeting minutes, yep.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Minutes are approved. Thanks. Okay, we have Select Board meeting on August 20th, and chances are we have one on August 14th at 7 o'clock that may be the joint meeting with Planning Board and Housing Authority for those that are here and can attend. We'll get that posted, but we'll confirm with Paul Deeman first, but I believe we'll be part of that. So keep the 14th on your minds as well, please. I think that's probably it. So I think with that, we're going to be...
Do you want me to read them into the record for you?
Sure, yeah.
Madam Chair, I move that we go into executive session for the following three reasons. MGL Chapter 30A, Section 21A, Number 2, to discuss strategy sessions in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel or to conduct collective bargaining sessions or contract negotiations with non-union personnel, specifically highway. MGL Chapter 30A, Section 21A, Number 3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigation position of the public body, and the chair so declares, specifically Cannabis Host Community Agreement. And then MGL Chapter 30A, Section 21A, 7, to comply with or act under the authority of any general or special law or federal grant in aid reimbursements, specifically executive session minutes of January 18th, February 27th, March 26th, April 9th, April 23rd, May 1st, May 14th, and July 9th, all of 2024, and further that the Select Board invite in the town administrator and our highway superintendent, and that we will not be returning to public session for any vote.
Okay, thank you. We have,
Second.
all right. We have a roll call vote, please.
Lumbra, aye.
Johnson, aye.
LaValle, aye.
Palmer, aye.
Fowles, aye. Okay, we are adjourned at 7:30, and we will not be returning to public session. Thank you very much.